wasn't a glare from my glasses. Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the LGBTQ Voice.
See blue in
I'm
it.
Tracy Welch, alongside Eileen Dugas. We invite guests on the show to talk about resources, events, topics, and what's happening in and around the South Coast LGBTQ plus community. Eileen?
Hi, everyone. My name is Eileen Dugas. I'm the network coordinator for the South Coast LGBTQ plus network. We are a nonprofit organization working with LGBTQ plus groups and allied organizations to build and maintain a comprehensive network for LGBTQ plus individuals and families in Southeastern Massachusetts. Tonight's show sponsor is Humphrey, Koval, and Coleman Insurance Agency, located right here in New Bedford for all your insurance needs. Don't overpay for flood insurance. They consistently save their clients 50% or more. For sponsorship opportunities, please contact Leo at newbedfordguide.com. How is everyone doing tonight? We have special guests I'm really excited about. Today we're going to talk with special guest David Bermudez, Stonewall veteran, and his husband, Bob Isidore. And anyone who wants to join in the conversation, feel free to put questions or comments in the chat. We will get to those as soon as we can. Tracy, I, and our guests will be more than happy to answer your questions or read your comments. So thank you. And Tracy, what's going on?
Cool beans, thanks. I want to let you guys know we do some housekeeping before we talk about the invited guests. That this year we're hosting Pride South Coast due to COVID-19 by Facebook events. So we're celebrating June Pride Month with LGBTQ plus artists. Daily, you'll see their bio, their artwork, which will be available for purchase. On June 6th, which would have been our Pride Day, or still is now our Pride Day, we're highlighting 3 local artists with a 15-minute time-lapse video of their artwork, showcasing their artistic abilities. And that piece and other pieces will also be available for purchase. Information to purchase artwork will be on our website and our Facebook page, because you'll see it on the Facebook page and the website, the South Coast LGBTQ Network. So I want to introduce our guests. So I hope you're ready for an amazing show. So 2 years ago, I became a foster mom. My daughter hadn't been to any of the prides, and I said, hey, listen, there's one more left. It's Cape Cod Pride. It's the end of the summer, and I used to be on Cape Cod Pride in the 90s. Do you want to go? So she said, yeah. So together we took a trip up to Falmouth, because that's where it was 2 years ago, and I told her the history of the Stonewall Riots and why we celebrated Pride. Well, as we're walking around, I see these 2 gentlemen with these Stonewall 69 hats on, and for all you guys that know me, I'm Welcome Wagon. I just went over to introduce myself, gave them my card.
That's right.
Had a conversation, and here we are. That's where the friendship began. So please welcome Stonewall veteran David Bermudez and his husband, Robert Isidore.
How are you?
I wish we could have had a studio audience. Clap, 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 clap. So can you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you met?
Yeah. Bob, you first.
Oh, of course. Well, I'm Bob Isidore. Right now, I'm the current chairman of the Yarmouth Democratic Town Committee. I'm the past president of the Cape and Islands Democratic Council. I've been involved in politics ever since I would say the first Clinton campaign when I lived in California. So it's been a long history with politics. I met David in New York City, and that was way back, was 47 years ago. So I was a buyer at Saks Fifth Avenue, New York, and David, I can't tell the whole story, because take the whole show. But,
I know, that's all right, you know.
It's a thing where it's funny when we talk about it. I was making a phone call on 14th Street, and I felt, you always feel somebody staring at you. Well, it was him. On the outside, looking at me, smiling. And to make it shorter, we went out, we had coffee, gave me all his contact information. I gave him all mine. I told him where I worked, and he said he was going to call me. Well, I didn't hear from him for like 2 months. And I figured, well, it's New York, out with people. And one day, this guy comes walking into Saks, and he said, I've been looking all over for you, and I've been asking everybody if they knew Bob Duncan. And I said, who's Bob Duncan? So he said, "It's you." I said, "No, my name is Bob Isidore." Well, he had been reading the book Isadora Duncan, being David. Once you get to know him, you'll understand that. So from that point on, we've been together ever since. And again, it's been 47 years next month.
Cool beans.
So, can you tell us what it was like being gay men before the Stonewall riot?
Well, I was married and I came from a family. I'm Puerto Rican and Spanish. My father was from Spain, my mother from Puerto Rico. And my father, being a minister, nothing was talked about in our family at all. But when I got older, I started sort of feeling there was something different about me, or something there was something I couldn't understand. But I got married, and then after my separation and all that, I went ahead and I moved to Manhattan. And I lived in Manhattan. Well, number one, I'm from Manhattan, born in Manhattan, raised in the Bronx. So I was still going through this whole thing with myself. And my mother was, we were still close. We were still seeing each other, my sisters. It was a normal family and all that. But I was going through this over here. So I left home and I just took my own apartment and did my own thing. Lived in Manhattan, lived in Puerto Rico for a while and traveled and all that to try and see if I can find myself. And then all of a sudden, I met somebody while I was in Manhattan and who was going through the same that I was going through. He was Italian from Hershey, Pennsylvania, and comes from a typical family like mine, an Italian conservative family and a Spanish conservative family. And we just met at the right time. And we were good for each other, but we didn't know anything other than that. And we became sort of like friends and all that. And then later on, we connected. And I was with him for about 5 years. But after that, I just went ahead and I stayed in Manhattan and I got myself a job and I went to school, studied design, and just did what somebody does, and worked. But it was still getting very hard for me, very, very hard for me because I still have my family. So my friend went ahead and committed suicide. And when this happened, it was an awakening for me. And I was so crazy for what has happened, I wound up almost committing suicide myself. But what helped me a lot, me not knowing it, is my older sister, who she must rest in peace. Um, when I was coming out of this, she was sitting on my bed, and I looked at her, and I had all these tubes and everything, and she says to me, "What are you doing?" And I says to her, "You really don't understand me. You don't understand." And she looked at me and said, "David, I'm your sister. We're 2 years apart. I understand everything." And that broke it right there. And from there on, I got involved with the LGBT movement.
So I know Lorraine's probably going to add to it, but so for gay men back then, I mean, there was a lot of beatings by the police. Can you kind of tell us, like, on a daily, like, or a weekly, what happened to gay men back then?
Well, it's very funny. If you went to a lot of bars, and I used to go once in a while to Stonewall and to other bars too. That wasn't really a bar, I didn't go to bars all the time. But when I was there was always especially when I was there was always raves. And at that time, the bars always had a bright light, and it meant when the light came on, separate, take your hands off each other, stop dancing. Somebody would go to the jukebox, pull the plug, and all that, and the cops would come in, raid us, and separate us, and call us dirty names, which I wouldn't.
So some of the pictures that people are seeing right now are from the Stonewall Inn riot.
Yeah, the pictures that you're actually looking at, a lot of them The night of Stonewall happened inside the bar. That's why, to me, when I look at these pictures and all, that's the Stonewall, what it looked like. But to me, those pictures mostly the following couple of days because the news media was not there, and all this riot was going on and all this stuff was going on in the bar and then it was outside, but nobody was paying attention. Everybody thought a bunch of, like somebody says to me, a bunch of fags fighting in a bar or something like that. But these pictures, a lot of them are from I think it was 5 days or something like that that we were out there.
Can I
It was
add
terrible.
something? Sorry, David.
No, go ahead.
Add something. I was in retail. We're talking 1974. And if anybody knows anything about retail, I mean, half of the people that work there are gay. I mean, whether in display or design or, some of the floor managers, I mean, but you couldn't say it. I mean, I'm talking about Avenue, and you could get fired, even though they knew you were gay. But if you just happen to say, I'm gay, or want to date one of the other guys that work with you, you could get fired. You could get
Yeah.
thrown out of your home.
I know, David told a story, about the day before what happened at Stonewall, what you were doing that day. You just got a new apartment, you didn't want to go out,
Right.
and get arrested because you lose your housing, you lose your job.
Yes,
And all this
everything.
is happening before that night even happened.
Yeah.
So
The
it's
thing,
just
the thing
amazing.
is too, Tracy, is that when you were in a bar and it was raided and you were taken in, not everybody was, mostly, to be honest with you, mostly the drag queens and the crazy kids that fought or something like that. Um, you try to not get arrested because the next day you'd be in the paper. You open up the middle of the paper, it'll be your names, it would be where you worked, it would be your address, it would be your phone number and all that. And everybody was afraid of that because then your mother would throw you out, your father, the boss would throw you out, your landlord would throw you out, and people were afraid to get printed up in the paper. And it was something that I try to always avoid because that was something that I was had a very good job. I had my friends that were with me. Some of them worked for the United Nations and all that. So we were trying to be cool about it. But if we would have come out in the paper, it would have been forget it. Who knows? And another thing too, people in our society, I don't care what anybody says, they were all alike. Our society did not like gay people, did not like lesbians, they didn't like nothing for them, forget that. So you could go over to a mother or a father or maybe a friend that understood. You know what I mean? You couldn't go to your priest, you couldn't go to the police department
Who
because
do you tell,
they're
right?
beating you up, huh?
Who do
Right.
you tell?
Yeah, who do you go? You go to each other. You try to be cool with each other, you know what I mean? But that's where I think I survived because when there were the raids and all that, I tried not to be forceful or mouthy or anything like that. I just took out my ID, gave the ID, they did my whole thing and all. And then they arrested whoever. They arrested mostly drag queens. They arrested guys that were fighting them back or something like that, and then they would be thrown out into the street. That's why we used to have a thing called the street boys, the street kids. They were thrown out by their parents. They didn't want them, you know what I mean? And that's the ugliness behind all of this. That if you got caught, there was nobody to go to, nobody at all.
I know we're going to go over the whole story of Stonewall, but one of the interviews that I had done with you last year was you told an amazing story about the AIDS crisis. So I
Yeah.
want to kind of know what was your experience with the AIDS crisis, please?
Well, Bob, you start first.
I was getting a little feedback there, Sue. Um, Dave and I'm sorry. Okay. Dave and during that time, we lived in San Francisco, and it was really rough. To be honest, I think,
I'm sorry, guys, we're getting the feedback again that we got earlier.
yeah,
Just trying to figure that out.
Put my mic lower. Is that better?
Oh, well, we were hardly hearing you before. Can you possibly turn it up just a little bit?
All right.
Sorry, guys. This is what happens when we're all at each other's home. Bob and Dave live together, and they have two laptops in the same house. So we're trying to watch the feedback.
Yeah.
So anyway, we lived in San Francisco at the time, and just so you know, what happened to me, we lost virtually every single friend. They all died of AIDS, and it was an experience where, I mean, we had a couple of friends who lived in the building. Well, every guy in that building died, and it wasn't, you talk about hundreds of people. Uh, the thing that was most moving to us, well, there were two. One was at the holidays, we used to always go to Castro Street, and this bank had this huge Christmas tree outside, and every year they would really decorate it up. Well, that year we went, and there were literally almost 1,000, maybe more, of ribbons with pictures of all the guys that passed away just in San Francisco from AIDS. Um, One of the other things that I found, and I know David always remembers this when he speaks, is people would pray. People would even go in your room in your hospital. But what we would see is these guys had carpal sarcoma and they'd be in wheelchairs. You know who was taking care of them was lesbians. I mean, I applaud them every time I talk to a lesbian.
Right.
Dave and I have to tell the story.
Yes.
They really took care of these guys, shopped for them, fed
Yeah.
them, washed them. They did everything. I mean, they were like, you know,
Mhm.
angels. Put it
But
that
that's something that we'll never forget because we experienced this not only losing our friends, but living in California, and there was an awful lot of deaths over there. But I remember a friend of ours. We went to Castro Street in San Francisco, and during the Christmas holiday, and like Bobby said, the tree and all that. What really always stayed with me, always to this day, is that when you had the AIDS virus, the kids have to understand this. They had sarcoma all over their bodies. They were very, very thin. They were all in wheelchairs. These guys were just, forget it.
Frail.
Something to look at that you never forget. So we were on Castro and we were walking around and we saw these two lesbians with two guys pulling the two guys with AIDS on their wheelchair. And we looked, and I said to Bob, look at that. That's the most beautiful thing I ever saw. Because, no excuse, but at that time, you have to understand that we didn't know how you got the AIDS virus. We didn't know. We thought maybe, like we're going to this right now, something like that. We thought by touching each other or, but it wasn't like that, later on. So we were afraid to help our own friends. We were there for them and all that. So I always remember you talked about, Tracy, about Stonewall. You know, you had the gay bars for guys and you had the lesbian bars. And actually, the lesbians and the gay guys never really got along with each other. I'll be very honest with you, unless you found some good friends like I had. So when we saw that, we saw a transformation of here we are all these years not liking each other, and when this happened to us, who came to our rescue? The lesbians. And you'll never forget that. I will never forget it, Bobby, and all my friends who are alive, which I have some friends of mine who have gone all these years through AIDS with the AIDS virus and all, they're doing very well. So this is something that a lot of the young kids don't understand, that during the AIDS virus, it wasn't that we didn't like each other or we wanted to keep away. We were afraid. Now everybody's going through something like this right now. It's a different thing, but still it's the virus. And I'll always, and I even told this to my book writer, and I told this to people who are writing things about me, please include this. If it wasn't for the lesbians, the guys, I'm sorry, you would have found them dead in alleyways, you would have found them dead in their apartments, because it was just a horrible moment of life. And that's why I always talk about my lady friends, my lesbian.
Well, the first time you told me that, I was like, that's the first time I ever heard that. Somebody thanking, and I think one of the reasons that we love having guests like you on our show, or all our guests, is that you lived it. You know what I mean? So we're hearing first interview, first talker.
Yes.
It. Eileen, you want to check out the comments?
Yeah, sure. I just want to say before I check out the comments, thank you for sharing that, your experience during that most challenging time. I really appreciate you sharing that. So thank you.
Thank you.
The comments we have, are you ready? Heather says hi. Nate, hi. Let's see. David is watching from Fall River. Heather says hi, David and Bob. Sarah's watching from New Bedford.
Oh.
Anthony John says hi, everyone.
Oh.
Holly, Fall River. Hi, Holly. Kelly Conley says hi, Tracy.
Hi, honey, I miss you.
Patty Serpa lost friends and at the time didn't know why. Ryan Costas watching from Fall River. Alex, hi, Alex. Alex says hi, I know them. It's Michelle's friend. And Heather says thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Cool.
And hi to
Hi, and Bobby's from Fall River, so.
Oh, Zoe just came on. Hi, Zoe.
Oh, hi, Zoe.
Yep.
So we're gonna switch to the Stonewall Riots. And what made you go to the Stonewall in that particular night? What made you go there?
Well, that's something that, well, I'll start from the beginning. We had a very famous actress and singer called Judy Garland. And the gay guys just loved her. You go to her concerts, you go to whatever, it was always, the gay guys and all that. Now, a lot of people, and I understand this, will say, well, Dave, it wasn't that. And I'm not saying that it was that. But Judy was found dead in England. She took an overdose. That's what they, said. And when we found it out, it was a very sad moment for all of us. But we didn't know, really, we didn't know that Judy Garland was going to be laid out in New York City. We didn't know that. And we found out that Judy Garland was being laid out at Campbell's Funeral Parlor in Manhattan. Well, we got all excited, So that was something that was a surprise to all of us. We thought maybe Los Angeles or something like that. So when we found that out, I had some friends of mine who were show business, said, Dave, if you want to come to the chapel, we'll get you in and all that. And there was thousands and thousands and thousands of people out there to see her. Most people did not see her. But that day he took me through the back door and brought me into the chapel, and there was Judy. And that was something that was so emotional for me, because she was like, let's say Michael Jackson was to the young kids, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And well, it went on for about, I think, like 2 or 3 days, something like that. So I went the first day, and then I went the day that she was being brought out from the parlor. And that's the day of June, in June, where we were there, and we saw that, and then that was it. It was so emotional. So I went home, and I was living at the YMCA at that time. I was not a rich little boy. And I get a phone call from some friends of mine for about 10 o'clock and says, Dave, we're going to the village. Let's go and have a couple of drinks and celebrate Judy's, life. And I went, no, I can't do something like that. No, I can't. Oh, come on, we could. I said, no. So I left it. So about I would say about 11:30 or something like that. These other two friends of mine called and they says, "Come on, Dave, we get in the subway. We just do a little drink. We come back home and all that." I said, "Okay." So we got in the subway and we went to West 4th Street, Christopher, and we went from bar to bar, and some bars were very sad, playing Judy's music. Uh, we were enjoying ourselves, but I didn't know that it was like almost 1 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? So we were leaving. I said, I think I better get home because I was leaving the Y that next day to my first apartment in New York. And they says, no, 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 let's go to one more bar. And I says, no, no, I got to get home. But if you live in New York City, you don't get on a subway 1:30 in the morning by yourself. You can at least have a friend or two with you. So I said, okay, let's go. So we were in the village and we were very close to the Stonewall, you know?
Yep.
And they said, let's go to the Stonewall. And I said, oh, okay. So we went there and we did our thing and all that. And it was, I would say when I got into the Stonewall, it was probably 1:10, 1:15, something like that. So we go in and us Latinos, the Spanish guys, always, there was a little cubby hole in the back of the bar on the left-hand side, a booth, like a booth place. And we were always there, we were always mingling and having a good time and all that. So I said, let's get some drinks, all right? So for the boy who served that day, was taking our drinks and all, came back and gave us our drinks. And it was about, it was about 1:30 or something like that. And that was supposed to be our last drink and all. And all of a sudden, this bright light I told you about goes on. And we went, oh my God. Now it's 1:30 in the morning. This never happens. And we said, well, why are they here? Because we knew that the Stonewall, they were paying off, the mafia was paying off the police. We knew, and they were one of the most famous bars. They were making a ton of money. And, once in a while they would come in and show your ID and go. But this time the lights went on and they yelled out, separate, meaning separate. And they walked to the front and asked for your IDs. And we were scared hell because we was in the back. And when this was going on, I says, oh, we got to get out of here. We're going to get caught because we're so much in the back. They're gonna arrest us and all that. But they were more interested in the, like I said before, the drag queens, and all of a sudden we're in the back and we were taking out our ID and we heard a commotion and we went, oh, all right. So we thought maybe some guys were arguing and fighting or something like that. And before you knew it, you hear, get off your my damn back. There was a lot of, New York, a lot of cursing and all that stuff. So we got scared. And oh my God, what's going on over here? I said, oh my God, I bet it's two guys just fighting in there. And they were fighting against the police. And the reason we saw that happening is because we saw the plainclothesmen, there was some plainclothesmen there, fall on the floor. And we figured, well, this is not two guys fighting, they're fighting with the cops. So we're stuck over there, couldn't get out. Everybody was doing their thing. Before you knew it, there was like a riot. So all of a sudden, we started sort of trying to get out of the bar, and we got to about the middle of the bar, me and my two friends, and I get hit in the neck. They had, they have these billy clubs, there was sticks that cops used to, have.
Yeah.
And I fell to the floor, and then I get up, and I look, and in front of me is this very handsome guy, and I said, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" And he looked at me, and I didn't know he was a plainclothesman. So some queen of some, I think it was a drag queen, jumped him to the ground. And when I saw that, I said, well, we got to get out of here. And we're trying to get out of the bar. And we're getting close to the door of the bar and all that. I saw this young man on the ground with a cop, with his leg was on his back, and he had a billy club around him. So I went in there to try to get the cop off, to fight the cop, get him off and all that. And my friends kept saying, David, we gotta get out of here. We're gonna come out in the paper. We're gonna lose our child, that kind of stuff. And I was trying very, very hard to get this person off, off the policeman off this person's back. We went outside and there was a big riot and all that stuff that went on. But the thing behind that is that we have the SVA, the Stonewall Veterans Association in New York City. And it's beautiful. They have speakers like mayors and you know all kinds of. They do parties, they do all this stuff. But the
Well, SBA is, you want to tell Stonewall Veterans Association.
yes, Stonewall Veterans Association, SVA. So Bob was on the internet, and years later, we were here. We were living in California in our home, right? And I always thought to myself, God, that boy must have gotten killed or something like that. This goes through your mind. So Bob gets an email, something, right? That is David Bermudez lived there. And Bob, mailed him back, and he said he was the president of the Stonewall Veterans Association in New York City, and he'd like to meet me and all that. So we got together, right? And Bob and I went to Greenwich Village. Now we're talking about many years later, and we go into this little burger place, and we're sitting there, and we're waiting for this guy to come in. And all of a sudden, this guy is coming in, and I says to Bob, "Hey, I know that guy. He's from the Stonewall. You know what I mean? It's Dave." I said, "I know he's older, but I know him." So he came over, and he looked at me, and he says, "Are you Dave?" I said, "Yeah." And he sat down, and we had burgers. We were having a nice time. And then he asked me questions. What were you doing? What happened? Why would you, that kind of stuff. I think to sort of get to you. So I told him, I said, well, one of the things that always stayed with me, oh my God, I saw this kid. He was on the ground, the cop was on top of him with billy club on his neck. I was always thinking to myself, I wonder if this boy had made it. You know what I mean? And he looked at Bobby and I and said, I'm the boy. I couldn't believe it.
Amazing.
I couldn't believe it. So we became friends. He's still the president of the Stonewall Veterans Association. As a matter of fact, the SVA, you want to send them money or something, just look it up. They would love that. His name was Williamson. And we became friends, and there you are. The years pass by, and you think these things, everything ends and all that, and then something like this happens. It's like,
So I want to go back to that night, or just in general, that normally, again, the mob paid off, the cops,
yeah,
and they usually gets up and they say, hey, we're going to come at 4:30 in the afternoon, just to let you know. And then usually the lights may be blue, the lights will turn white, everybody
yeah,
gets against the wall and they go. Well, the mob, for whatever reason, didn't pay the cops.
you pay the cops.
Alan had passed away. I mean, all these things led up to, if this didn't happen, if this didn't happen, if this didn't happen, we wouldn't be where we're at today.
Exactly. You hit it right on the nose. As a matter of fact, we were asking that question. There was always, when they called, there was always some young boys that would go outside the bar because, oh, we're going to raid. We're just going to come in and raid. But they would go outside the bar, and then they would come inside and say, pull it. They're coming in. We were used to that, right? That night it didn't happen. So we asked them, oh, how did this happen? They said they didn't pay. They didn't pay. They didn't pay. The mafia did not pay the cops that month or whatever. So they took it out on us.
Could you tell me the story about the photographer that got locked inside the bar with the police?
You know that was
Yeah, that was he actually worked for the Village Voice.
Village Voice.
And when this riot or rebellion, we call it, started in the bar and it started spreading into the streets, the cops were going out, but they ran back in because the crowd was getting so big outside. I was not in the bar, but David was. Well, this reporter just happened to be walking down the sidewalk, and they grabbed him and dragged him in because they thought he was one of the gay guys that were fighting.
Straight.
He wasn't, and he got the whole story because, matter of fact, Officer Pines, who was in charge of the raid,
Yep.
was inside, and once they barricaded themselves back in, I don't know if people have seen the Stonewall, but there was like a board on the front window. There were little cracks in it that you could look through, and they could see the crowd getting bigger and bigger, and people were throwing things at the Stonewall. Well, they actually took out their guns, and they were ready to open fire.
Right.
If that door opened up, this is what was told by the reporter. If that door opened up, they were going to open fire.
Yeah, I was right in the front of the bar with my friends, you know, doing our stuff. And if they would have opened that, let's say they didn't see, what stopped Pine was that he heard sirens. And he heard paddy wag. By the way, paddy wagons, that's what they used to call them, that they used to put us in, take us to the police.
Yep.
And then he said, stop. And everybody shoots, you're in trouble and all that, you know. But if he didn't hear that, he would have opened the door and started shooting us. I wouldn't be here today. But the thing is, it's always something strange always happens. I always say this, you know what I mean? That here is this guy who is just passing by. They grab him, they throw him in the bar, close the door, and he was a reporter, and he knew everything that was going on. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't even have known this story. We wouldn't, you know, about what was going on and all that. And then I got to know Pine, by the way. And you know, years passed, you know, and I didn't know this and then all that kind of stuff. And being who us gay people are, right, through the years, you know, we'd have barbecues in Central Park, you know, invite them, and sometimes some of the guys who were there too, the detectives or whatever. And he always owed till the day he died. He said, you know, it wasn't that I wanted to do this, and it wasn't that I was against it, you know, that kind of stuff and all that. So,
You know, the funny thing,
huh?
when Dave and I were up in New York for the 40th anniversary, yeah, 40th anniversary. Well, we were on the lead float, the Stonewall float.
Yep.
We had an honor guard of, I even told David, they're coming back for us again. Well, we had an honor guard of policemen, and they actually supplied the float for the Stonewall. They
I
watched
mean,
it.
what an amazing,
I mean,
come around from this event.
Yes.
There's a couple of comments. I'm gonna let you read it. Joe's. We already know about Joe. Go ahead.
Joe,
Joe
yeah.
there. Hi, Joe.
he says, please let David and Bob know that Joe is watching them while enjoying fried clams from
No
your
good.
favorite restaurant. He's enjoying them for you.
I'll get you for that, Joe. I'm going to get you for that.
And your favorite restaurant is Antonio's, guys.
Oh, we love it.
Yummy.
Yeah.
Heather Souza Charette says, that's awesome. Sarah Daz, thank you both for sharing your stories. Very sweet how you met. And Patty, hi Patty, says, thanks Bob and David for the first-hand history. Very interesting and informative. So thank you.
Could be.
Can I add something to this?
Definitely, Bob.
We always hear, because I know a lot of people in the transgender community, David does, and they're always saying the guys from Stonewall never talk about the transgender community. There were two people that we knew that were there. Everyone else, we didn't. I mean, if you're going back now into the 60s, I mean, we couldn't walk around saying we were gay, never mind having the
Transgender.
They're transgender. And so when we see somebody in the bar, if they were dressed as a female, because they were drag queens. I mean, you could have been a cross-dresser, could have been transgender, could have been drag queen, but nobody talked about it. Only Sylvia and
Marsha Johnson.
Yeah. So one of the things I was going to ask you guys is
they talked about it. But
what was that again?
Yeah, years back it was illegal to cross-dress. Individuals had to wear 3 articles of gender-appropriate clothing. female officers would take suspected cross-dressing patrons into the bathroom to check their sex. I could not imagine that. I would be arrested. I have a men's jeans, men's shoes, and a men's vest right now. Probably men's shirt, I guess.
Yeah, right.
But how hard was it on your friends who cross-dressed not to violate the state's gender-appropriate clothing statute?
Well,
I mean,
you got to give credit. What was that, Bob?
It was almost impossible, unless they would wear 3 pieces of
Pieces
clothing,
of clothes underneath, yeah.
whether it be underwear or socks or.
It's like strip search. That's what it was,
They
right?
still asked anyway.
Yep.
It didn't make any.
But I knew I knew a lot of drag queens, and we would talk about that, and a lot of them were very feisty. Let me tell you something; they were very, very feisty. But they were ladies, and I would ask them, and a lot of them didn't have it, and they didn't care. They said, "Well, so they arrest us." You know what I mean?
Yep.
I want to go back to something.
Please.
Night of Stonewall, there was a lot of lesbians, not lesbian, I'm sorry, a lot of drag queens. I'm sure there was cross-dressers, there was, transgender, I'm sure, but like we said before, nobody about that. Let me tell you something. You got to give credit to those drag queens. They fought, man. They fought. They said, "No way are you going to touch me." Yeah, it was so funny. We used to laugh and all that. They were tough. And we had a good time with them, but man, you didn't play with those people. And you got to give these ladies credit. You got to make them the person who actually fought for us, actually, without even what you call being scared. Nobody was scared. They said, "All right, take me in. I don't care. I'm used to this." They get in the paddy wagon. But that night they fought. They fought. They didn't want to. They would not. They would not get into the paddy wagons. You know what I mean? To a point that somebody was. They were putting them in a one of these vans, and somebody hit the key and took the cuffs off them. They started screaming and running, and they were beating the cops. And you gotta give these ladies, oh my God, the credit of the world. You know what I mean? And it was fun to us. To us, a lot of people think, oh, this is scary. No, we were having fun. I swear to God, we really were.
So I hear there is a new book called Stonewall Generation by Jane Flushman coming out. And I know a lot of people want to hear more about your story, more about Stonewall. Can you tell us a little bit about your part in that book?
Yeah, Bobby, why don't you do it? Not me. Go ahead, Bob.
Excuse me. Yeah, Jane, actually, I was kind of going through, we were going to give a talk somewhere. So I was going through on the internet, and I noticed this person was writing a book. It wasn't called The Stonewall Generation. She had another name to it, but it was about the people who lived during the time of Stonewall. Not necessarily at Stonewall, but that generation. So I shot her an email, said, I'm great, happy you're doing this. I'm married to a Stonewall veteran. Blah, blah, blah. Well, a week later, she was at our house. She came down herself. She's I always kid David because she's a lecturer. She's also a psychologist and author. And I said, well, you're in for a treat because you got a psychologist. But she was just wonderful. She's been here, I guess, about 3 times. And she put together this book and she interviewed, I think it's about a half a dozen people. And it's basically their own personal stories of what they went through during that time. Not necessarily at Stonewall, but being a lesbian, being a gay man, what they think has been accomplished since then, personal stuff about their relationships. So I think it's an interesting book, and you can actually go onto the UU bookstore, the website. You can order it straight from there. So
Sure.
$20.
Well, it's amazing that we have to capture this information. When I met you guys a couple of years ago, And we talked about it that a lot of the men or ladies in the bar died of AIDS or their age. I know, David, you just celebrated your 80th birthday. You
Oh
know, so
my God, it's 60th.
60 plus 20, baby. 60 plus 20. But I mean, at our 50th anniversary Stonewall event, we had over 200 people
Yeah.
sitting and just hearing your story and the comments and the gratitude that we got for having you guys come down was wicked, wicked cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Just wonderful. I love talking. I not forget the age, right? I love
Oh,
talking to the younger kids and all the younger people too, because sometimes I hear people that they argue who was there, was Sylvia, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff, which to me that's trivia. We have in our group we have pioneers. The pioneers to me go back to even the guys who died of AIDS. They died of a disease. They did nothing wrong, but they were just living their life like anyone else. We were going through a thing with being gay and all that stuff. And when I see something like that and I hear something like that, I say, I tell the kids, why don't you talk about the pioneers? I'm going to give you an example. There's a guy named Joe Quigley. He's on the eating. Are you eating, Joe? Uh-huh.
He's Josie.
I'm going to get you. This guy was a pioneer in the 80s from Oklahoma. This guy fought, he fought for the gay movement for years and for years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I have a Joe Quigley story.
Yeah.
So in 2006 in New Bedford, we actually had two gay bars. One was La Place and one was, excuse me, Puzzles Lounge. Unfortunately, an incident happened at that bar where an 18-year-old kid from New Bedford went in with a fake ID,
Yeah, I heard.
ordered some drinks and asked, if this was a local gay bar, had his drink and tried to hatch it and kill the patrons in the bar. So because of what happened a couple of years back down the road, they closed. That was, we talked about a men's bar and a girls' bar, right? That was the men's bar. The place was the girls' bar. We were still, welcoming each other's bar, but this is my bar. I'm a girls' bar, you're the guys' bar. Joe had told me that some gay guys, young kids, had come in and said, well, why are all the lesbians here? So Joe said, well, you got to understand, the lesbians let us in. We didn't have a home no more. We didn't have a bar. They let us in. So that's why Joe told the story.
Oh, yeah. Joe's,
I'm
not,
laughing
huh?
because I saw a comment come up from Alexandria. She loved the bunny in the back of me. That's our pet.
You want to get to those comments? I'm sorry.
Sure. Heather says, I have your signed Stonewall hat from AHA Pride last year. It was very nice meeting both of you. I gave you a big mom hug.
Yeah,
Mary Louise
Same here.
says hi. Colleen, hi Colleen. Thank you to both of you, pioneers of the first fight for LGBTQ rights. It's been a long journey. As a gay woman, I've marched in parades with pride after being a victim of police discrimination and a fighting survivor of volatile bashing back in the late 1980s. Thank you for fighting for all of us and showing us that history can change. Alexandra Moniz says, I just want to thank you for sharing your stories. It is so wonderful to hear everyone. Also, I love the bunny in the background of Bob.
So I've been to their house. I've been very fortunate, and there's a lot of antiques, and it's very beautiful and very, very amazing. And they make an awesome lunch. I got to tell you that. So could you guys have ever imagined the impact the Stonewall Riots have had on our community?
Yes.
Yeah.
You could?
I didn't get that.
I want to say something about that.
You got it.
Obviously, there are so many pioneers that are not even known that fought for gay rights. But I have to say something to everybody that's watching. Being into politics a little bit, and I'm not getting into party. But the reason that so many changes were made is because people got off their butt and voted. You have to be asked if you're going to wait for the politicians to change it, you're going to have a long way. You need to be active. You need to vote. You need to elect people that would stand for equal rights right across the board. Example, David, when we first came to Cape Cod, David encouraged me to get involved in politics again, and I went, yeah. But we had a chairman of our local Democratic town committee. She was leaving. She was going out of state, so they had to elect a new chairman. And people wanted me to run. I said no, I didn't want to. Well, then we heard her saying, "You can't. No, no, no. You cannot have him run. You know he's one of them."
Mhm.
So talk about getting pissed off. David said, "You never want to piss off a Portuguese queen." Well,
It's a census year, the 2020 census. People, you
Yeah,
got to go
that's
on
it.
and
Right,
you got to
right.
get that census out.
we are, and David was calling people. And would you believe I won the election by one vote?
Oh,
And people say that, right? It never happens, right?
oh, no, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been reelected ever since then. But the fact is, I was the first openly gay man ever to become chairman of that committee. First openly gay man to become president of the Cape and Island Democratic Council. So, and I'm not saying that,
And thank you both for your service. And I know you were actually in the service.
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
So the fact is, people have to get out and vote because if you don't exercise that, you don't have a voice. And that's all I'm saying.
And with me, there's one thing, Tracy, that I have to say, I would never see this ever, what's going on now, ever. I mean, this was like, well, this is never gonna happen. We went through the Stonewall, then we went through AIDS, and we went through all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, we moved to Massachusetts, we buy this house, and I'm looking at TV, and Bobby's in the kitchen cooking, and they're talking about marriage, and I went, marriage? Marriage to what? What? No way, that's not gonna happen after all this has happened. So I went, oh. So I went, I'm not the mushy one. This guy is. I went into the kitchen and I says, hi, and he says, would you marry me? And he looked at me and he went, what are you talking about? I said, would you marry me? So I told him, you know what I mean? He said, no.
Oh, I had to think about it.
He
That
said,
was
think about it. And all these things that that are happening now. Look, we just had a gay man trying to be president. Look at the change that we're going through. It's so great to see this. You know, this is something that's very close to my heart, very close to my heart. To see all these wonderful things happening. So you got to vote, and you got to stop fighting with each other. You know what I mean?
And I want to add that we have to thank people like Tracy and Ellen.
Yes, yes.
You're getting the message out.
You're getting the
And
message out.
folks like you,
Right.
we wouldn't have the progress we have either. So
We appreciate it because that's one of the reasons why we do the show. We always say that we're bringing the community to you.
Oh, yeah.
Depends on, what the topic happens to be. But I know you guys were talking about politics a couple minutes ago. Do you guys want to talk about the personal letter that you received from Barack Obama and how that came about?
Yeah, one day, Tracy, the hat, huh?
Yeah.
By the way, anybody wants to buy hats, if you still have more, you're selling
Yeah.
them, right? You still have more?
Yeah.
You go and buy these hats because you only get them through me, right, Tracy?
Only 3, baby. You're my supplier. You're my plug.
You know, um, I've always loved his wife. Obama's wife. I always thought she was a camp. You know what I mean? Well, one day I said to Bob, why don't we send a couple of hats to them? You know what I mean? And Bobby knows all these politicians. I mean, So I said, I don't know if they're going to get there. We'll pack them. We'll send a letter. We'll send a tape about Stonewall and, that kind of stuff. So Bobby, who was the politician you gave this hats to?
I told David, I said, if we mail it, you probably will never get it because, you're mailing something to the president. It goes through all these people looking at it and da 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 da. So I called Congressman Keating. I know Congressman Keating. I said, Bill, would you do us a favor? And he said, what's that, Bob? I said, Dave and I would like to send something to Iraq. could you deliver it for us? And he said, sure. He sent one of his aides. We had the package made up. We gave it to him. And 2 weeks later, he actually went into the White House one day and I had the same for you. And he gave it to him. And 3 weeks later, David got a personal letter from Barack thanking him.
Thanking us, yes.
Not just thanking you for the hat, but thanking you for you being a
Oh,
pioneer.
yeah. And thanking us because we gave him we sent him a CD of a show that we did with Lady Di, and it was about Stonewall and all that, and he praised us and all that. It was a beautiful letter. I treasure it. You know, probably going to go into the Smithsonian.
I can send you a copy of the letter. So maybe that's a program.
Yeah, I'll send you a copy so like that you could.
I have a personal one from you guys already.
Okay.
Because that's how you roll.
So one day in the show you could read it or something. You know what I mean?
Well, hold on. You stay there. I already asked the next question. I'll go get it.
I
Okay.
will.
All right.
So,
We can talk with you. Come on. What do you have?
so earlier you said that you asked Bob to marry you, and he said no, but you are married.
Yeah.
I told him I'd have to think about it.
Yeah, and not only that we're married, but we were having we wanted to have it our house with a private, I didn't want no church and all that. So we invited about 35 people or something. We have a nice piece of land and a lot. But when I was outside, because I do a lot of gardening, people at that time would say, I heard that you and Bobby are getting married and all. I said, yeah. Well, what day it is. I told him the date and all. I says, well, if you're around, we're going to have barbecue. No, come on in. I think over 200 people showed up.
Wow. I hope you had a lot of food.
Yeah.
And there were what, maybe 20 gay people. All the rest were straight.
All straight. The two people that became our best man and woman, the two dear friends of ours in California, Lynette Bones and Carl. She said, now this is California. We heard that you and Bob are getting married. Wait a minute. You're going from California. We want to come down. We want to come to the wedding. Now, these two are conservative, born again. We've been friends for years. They came down and they stood up for us.
Right.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Yeah, well, the place was crowded. But everybody knows we always have a lot of wine. We always have a lot of food.
We still do.
So I'm going to read the letter. It said, Dear David, thank you for your kind gifts. I was touched by your warm gesture. At Stonewall, people joined together and declared they had seen enough injustice. While being beaten down, they stood up and challenged not only how the world saw them, but also how they saw themselves. History shows that once that spirit takes hold, little can stand in the way. So the riots gave way to protests, the protests gave way to movement, and the movement gave way to a transformation that continues today. Please know I am also grateful for your continued support for our shared values and vision for our nation's future. Your generosity is much appreciated, and I wish you and Bob the best. Sincerely, Barack Obama.
Isn't that beautiful?
I got mine. I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
I tear up because everyone knows I cry. That's what I do.
Oh,
Go ahead, Eileen. Sorry.
It's amazing. That's just beautiful, and it shows the impact that you have made on our nation by standing up for what's right and for protecting all of us. So thank you for that. Thank you. The community can't thank you enough.
And thank you for keeping it up.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
I always tell the young people, listen, you can't sit back. You can't act like everything's okay. We go to bars. No, don't do that.
Well, because of the show we do here, we actually did a show where we had some of our elder generation and our youth generation on the show, and the elders said, "Oh crap, our work ain't done. We got to help them." Yeah. So actually, the last few prides, we've had the Fairhaven Council on Aging on our volunteers.
Mhm.
And it's just amazing to see everybody working together because you kind of hope that the baton is passed at some point, that the work is done. But as you can see, it's not nearly done. So
No.
everyone's picking that baton back up and, pitching in.
Yes, yes. And and it's nice seeing shows like yours and other things that are happening too. But the young kids, all I say is, I'm 60 years old, and I'm telling you, don't sit back. Fight for your rights. I don't say go out there the way us crazy kids did it in the 60s
Yeah.
because we didn't care. But go out there and fight for what is right for you. I don't care who you are. Fight for it. And I think by doing that, you'll give it to the next generation. Next generation can get even better. I've seen in 50 years, my God, stuff I never thought in a million years I would see. Right, Joe?
I know, huh?
Joe can tell you that, right? Right? You know,
Definitely.
Joe's been on our show.
I know I
Yeah.
saw him once. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a cool guy. Oh, Joe's a cool guy. I love his art. If nobody knows, he's a great artist. Oh my
We,
God.
we know he did our Stonewall portrait.
Yeah, yeah. He did this
He did
year.
that for.
It was my birthday or something, and I says, "Oh, why don't you do something, Joe, in cartoon form? Do something, the riot of Stonewall and all that stuff." And he gave me for my birthday this beautiful pen and ink, or he does it with, and it was so funny. Everybody I saw there says, this one looks like this one."
Well,
This
when I
one.
was at your house and you showed me that, that's where I got the idea to do the 50th anniversary of Stonewall commemoration piece, celebrating 50 years of Stonewall, 30 years of prohibiting discrimination based on sexual orientation, 15 years of marriage equality in Massachusetts.
Yeah,
So that one little picture is where I got the brainstorm for Joe to do that piece that you guys have the original artwork at your house.
he
And
did well. He's great. He's
and
absolutely
the
great.
piano we made, it actually hangs at our youth center. So every time the kids talk about it, they're like, what's that? I go, that's history. And then we
Yeah.
tell them what's going on.
Right. So, Bob and Dave, you shared so much with us tonight. Is there anything else that you really want to talk about at the end of the show?
I can say one thing very quickly. Be proud of who you are and stand up for who you are.
Right. Be
Thank
proud
you.
of who you are. Stand up for you. I did a small thing in Provincetown about a year ago or something like that, right? With about, I would say maybe 8 or 9 cross dressers, right? In Provincetown. Remember, Bob?
Yes.
Yeah. And I always saw something that I found, this is me. I see a lot of that. Oh, it was the weekend of the cross dressers, right? Or something like that. And I always saw them always walking like this, and with their head down and all. And when we were talking, I says to him, no, somebody asked me that question. And I said, be proud of who you are. Go back. If I was dressed in drag, let me tell you, I'd be a broad. I'd be really, what I
Yep.
mean? I want you to know, be proud when you're walking down the street and show yourself and, be lovely as you are. Don't walk around with your head down. Don't walk around like, nobody likes me. Don't do that, you know? And it's funny because I know a couple of cross dressers, and they always say, that was very sweet. I says, come on, push your back and stand up there and be proud of who you are. This is something that I tell all LGBTQ people, all of them. Be proud of who we are. We're a family. We're one family. We're one big, big, big family. And just be proud and do what is right, but do it right and do it for all and stop arguing.
Thank
Right?
you. Thank you for that. Tracy, we're just about out of time tonight. Is there anything you want to add?
Thanks, Eileen. So next week, we're going to break down all the Pride South Coast events that we have going online by Facebook or by email. And our guest will be Andy Pollock, the president of the South Coast LGBTQ Network.
So David and Bob, thank you again for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you sharing the things that you've been through, the things that you've done, your journey. Thank you again. Don't forget, next week, everyone, join us, learn about what's happening for Pride. We have a lot of virtual events going on. Join us. Thank you all for watching. See you next Tuesday at 7.
Hugs to everybody.
Take care,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you. It
Thank
was
you.
great. It was great. Thank you. Bless
Thank
you
you.
all and be safe.
Yes.